I don't know about you, but I've learned that ideas have power. The ideas that take residence in our minds steer our thinking. Our thinking drives our actions, and our actions determine our results and ultimately our destiny. Ideas, both good and bad, have steered human history and will determine the results of your day. My hope is to curate and pass on some of the best ideas. Ideas that create positivity, that build momentum, and produce extraordinary results. Ideas that build better businesses. Well, we're continuing on our Success Principles series.
We are.
Been following along. We've covered Want What You Want. Mm-hmm. We've talked about the fact that the secret is that there is no secret. And most recently, we discussed the idea of all opportunity lying on the other side of value creation. Yeah. And I think where we're going today in principle number 4 is maybe as practical as it gets.
Yeah. I was just listening to your intro, actually, and when you just said all actions drive results, I was like, this really for me is like the actions that you take.
You actually listened to the intro while it's playing?
I did.
I completely zoned out.
It was good. But yeah, I was like, this is the one that really resonates for me.
It's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
It's as practical as it gets. And I think this is a perfect example of one of those principles or ideas in life that are just fundamentally overlooked or underappreciated because they just sound too simple and it's like a meme. It's a bumper sticker. Yeah. You just keep moving.
Yep.
But what we're discussing today is the idea of choosing to focus only on what you can control. And there's no way for me to start this other than this. One of my all-time favorite quotes from Epictetus. I'm guessing most people don't know who Epictetus is, but so I'll give a little bit of backstory. Epictetus is one of the very few famous Stoic philosophers that actually has anything written down. There's only a handful of books that actually ever got written.
That makes sense.
Some of them aren't even books. They're just musings that were collected, and they were like personal journals. But there's this group of people with this idea about how to practically live life. Epictetus actually happens to be one of the larger bodies of works that we have, but he didn't even write it. His student wrote it.
Yeah.
And so his student, who was inside of all of his lectures, took notes, and all those notes have been compiled into his works. But Epictetus was a slave, and he lived the vast majority of his life in servitude, but not nice slave. We're talking like tortured slave. He's actually famous for walking with this limp. He was known to have a bum leg, and the story is that under duress, his master or whatever was twisting his leg intentionally to punish him, and they twisted it up to the point that it snapped. So you got a guy that lived an incredibly challenging and difficult life.
Yeah.
And I can most closely connect him in my brain to Nelson Mandela living for 20-something years in prison. So super challenging situation. But as he lived through that period of time, this quote is so resonant when you think about it in that context.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He ends up earning his freedom and becoming a philosopher. And as all of his writings get written down, they become incredibly influential in the Roman Empire. As future Roman emperors get access to his work, read it, and implement that into their governing practices. So Marcus Aurelius and all of them all quote and reference Epictetus, the slave that came from nothing, that became a voice that impacted the world as we know it.
Yeah.
And so it's the context of suffering, it's the context of challenge, it's the context of needing to decide where to focus your attention or what to think on, and maybe what to not think on. That I start with this quote. It's the chief task of life is what I call it, and this is written very high on my list of principles in life. But Epictetus says, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can clearly say to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control." And that's a lot of words, I guess, to say something super simple. Is the chief task of life, how would I translate that? The most important thing you can possibly do is to fundamentally separate matters into 2 buckets. There are things that are within your control, And I think of those as levers that you can pull that actually produce an outcome or a yield or change or progress. And then there's another bucket, and those things that are out of your control that no matter what you do, ruminating, focusing on, processing, spending time on, and giving energy to those things will have no fundamental, you have no lever. There is no way for your inputs into that to make a difference into your life one way or the other. They will happen or they will not.
Yeah, I'm so glad you teed that up that way, because I mean, I didn't know that as his backstory. And so to me, when you did that, that does like completely change my mindset on, I mean, just that statement that he was able to make and how he probably was able to shape different outcomes in his really terrible rough situation. Like I didn't know that backstory. That makes a big difference in my head, honestly.
I forget the Nelson Mandela poem, Invictus.
Yeah.
But it basically says the same thing.
Yeah.
As we talk, I'm going to try and focus on this that I can
the
control.
Conversation and also find that. Yep, I get that.
I think it's simple. I think it's easily misunderstood, but I would attribute to my world so much progress to this. And I think the backstory to this is that we are saturated right now in stuff we can't control.
Yes, exactly.
I think, there's several things going on. One, the world is just filled right now with context for us to absorb information that
really has nothing to do with.
Well, and we're just not ready for it. Our brains have not evolved to the point that we can take in the amount of information and news that we're saturated with on a daily basis. Yeah. We grew up in little tribes of 150. We knew all our people, and once in a while there was a tiger or a bear or a lion or a warrior tribe that we had to be prepared for and fight against.
Yeah.
The rest of the time we were busy focusing on the things that we needed to do, our crops,
to survive,
our wagon, or whatever, the things that we had control over.
Yeah.
But what's wrong with humans is that we have, unlike all other mammals, the capacity to look backwards and to look forward and to ruminate on things that happened yesterday and to worry about things that might happen tomorrow. And that's a superpower because it's what makes us able to store grain and make smart decisions. But it's also the fundamental thing that unwinds us because given the finite amount of time, energy, resources, and focus and attention that we have, we've ultimately wired the world to create so much noise that we're constantly inundated with things to focus on and think about and give our energy to that are 1,000,000% out of our control.
Not in our control. Yeah. No, as you just said that too, I'm 100% guilty of trying to fix things that happened yesterday for absolutely no reason, like ruminating on that and replaying it. Yeah. Or wish I would have, wish I could have. I do that a lot. And I more probably as a mom, I feel like, or like future events, think about things that are not, I can only focus on what I can control with my boys right now, not what they're going to go do tomorrow necessarily. But I'm a worrier a little bit. So I do get anxious about things that aren't even happening yet. Or I think, that I can't control the future necessarily on that.
So like most things, progress starts by owning the reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is that this is an intrinsic human trait. Yeah. It's natural in us.
Yeah, I definitely wrestle with it.
Yeah, but it's good. It's not good or bad. It is. Mm-hmm. It is that we are wound to look forward and backwards. It's what makes us more capable than other mammals. It also is that we live in a present context where we're inundated with things to worry about that are outside of our control.
Yeah.
The news media, market conditions, future weather events.
Yeah. Yep.
We have information about what's going on in Ukraine. We have information what's going on in Israel. There's so much going on. And it's not, I'd love to know about the world.
Yeah.
But the chief task in my daily operating system, despite wanting to know things and being in a world where there's no way I'm not going to know all these things, my daily operating system, the work to be done for me every day is to ensure that I understand the two buckets.
Yeah.
And that as I'm taking all this in, I'm putting them in the appropriate buckets. Because our brain has a natural inclination to just want to put it all into one big bucket.
Yeah.
We can't distinguish between what we can and can't control. It's all just stuff to worry about.
Yep.
And the problem with that is the deep, deep levels of inefficiency that we actually have in our capacity to move the ball forward in ways that fundamentally do alter our life and do get us the things that we want.
Yeah, I was imagining like, it really is like an energy suck, right? Like if I choose, if I make the choice, or if I'm subconsciously doing it, putting time, effort, energy, brain power into these things that I can't control. I mean, I literally feel different. I have to like remind myself to let those things go because it can be a total energy suck, I think.
Yeah, so let me go there because I was trying to think of an algorithm for this. I think it's very insightful. It's not just there's a finite amount of you.
Yeah.
You time, you energy, you focus.
Yes.
Let's give that a daily quotient of 100.
Yep.
And so obviously the most the maximum yield that we're going to get out of life is if all 100 of that 100 is appropriated to something that produces a positive yield, things that impact our future. Mm-hmm. So if we took all 100 and spent the entire day worrying about some future event that's happening in another country, obviously that day would be wasted.
Yes.
But it's more than that. It's not just that 100 would have been applied at a zero quotient or factor to positive.
Yeah.
We didn't just lose the positive 100 that could have gone towards Coles Notes Popeyes.
Yeah,
or
totally.
time with loved ones or whatever it might be. We actually, in appropriating that to anything negative, created a negative impact in our world.
Absolutely.
We sucked energy.
Yep.
We didn't just misappropriate an asset. Mm-hmm. We lost. So maybe dollars is a good way to think about this. Putting $1 or $100 into something that produces a positive yield versus actually spending it on something that harms or hurts us.
Yeah.
And so, there's a loss of opportunity in the misappropriation of our time and energy. Yeah. But there's also a negative impact to our psyche, to our energy,
so
to
many
our
things.
In ruminating on things that we can't control. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword of positive opportunity and frankly loss. Yeah,
and I was just thinking on the positive side too, like it is not even exponential. Like I think that the exponential on the positive side, I mean, it can go the bad way too, right? It's not just even.
So getting practical here, as we continue, what I've learned to do, and I don't even remember where I first heard this, but I think it's really derived from Epictetus's quote. The trick here, in order to ensure that you're thinking about the buckets correctly, is every single day, every single thing, the little dialogue that needs to go on in your brain is this something that's up to me, or is this something that's not up to me? Yep. And then if it is up to you, give it 100%. If it's not up to you, give it 0.
Let it go.
And obviously that's hard to do. And obviously that's a daily grind and a daily challenge. But if you just stop and think this through for a second, and then you mentioned exponential, I think that's the point. On any given day, to waste some time or energy focusing on something slightly negative, it just doesn't seem like that big a deal. So quit preaching at me. But over the course of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the distinction between people that create massive results in their life and in their world and those who seem like they're standing still. Yeah, stuck in is fundamentally about the exponential compounding impact of energy being allocated to things that do move the ball forward versus things that don't. Yeah. And again, it sounds too simple, but I really think it is that it really comes down to this. Yeah, I agree. I totally see it that way. And I think one of the things that really popped into my mind is also kind of, I know where we're going next, but people think about all the things that, well, but I can't, I didn't do that. That thing that happened to me, it happened to me, right? And we're going this direction with E plus R equals O, but a lot of things happen in our life that you seemingly can't control, but it's really about choosing how you're going to respond to those events, because that's your choice that you can control. And I imagine anytime I'm struggling with this, my brain has to imagine the poster that was on your wall in the office upstairs that it had the circle of the things that are in my control and the things that are out. And I have to remind myself, and that picture is very helpful for me to go, okay, my response is my choice, and how I respond to this is going to be my choice, and I'm going to focus on what I can control with my response. Which we actually, we wrote those down it's on the reflection questions in the handout here. It's actually worth going through. Yeah, it's so good. So I'm
inside the circle.
Inside the circle.
Inside the circle of your control. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Maybe this isn't comprehensive, but I think it works pretty well. Inside of your control are your words.
Yep.
What you say, your thoughts, your response, your self-talk. I think this is a huge one. We spend a lot of time with people. So let's be Epictetus. Let's be Nelson Mandela. Or let's be you on any given Tuesday when something crappy happens, the market, the interest rates go up, or maybe the sale that you were hoping for falls apart, or maybe it's just not even negative. It's just there's another day in front of you. What is in your control are these things. So your self-talk is a big one because given all of this bombardment that we've got right now, the capacity to choose how, we would never speak to other people
the way that we
tend to speak to ourselves.
Absolutely.
But that's a huge input. Your self-awareness is something you can continue to focus on. The media you consume is probably the biggest one right now.
Right. Yes.
And I'm repeatedly reminded of this, and I go through cycles where I'm just tired and I just want to numb my brain for a while, and I find myself doom scrolling.
Yes, they call it doom scrolling for a reason.
And within a period of time, days, weeks, I can totally tell the impact to my psyche and my productivity.
Same.
And then I go through the cycle where I just axe it all, I turn it all off, and I delete all my accounts, and I read and listen to podcasts. And then
surprisingly, you feel and act better, right?
It changes everything.
Yes.
And you can control how you treat others. What you cannot control, what falls outside of the circle of your control, the past and the future. I think those are really key. I think we've touched on this. If you're ruminating on something that you did or someone did to you, you are misallocating energy.
Yep.
If you're worried about something that's happening in the future, the problem with this one is that there's a distinction between responsibility and preparedness.
Yeah.
So what, just don't buy life insurance? Well, no, do
be prepared. Yeah.
Because that is a lever that you can control. You can control having that safety net.
Yep.
What you can't control is worrying about it and spending time. That has no bearing, that has no impact. That's just misallocated time.
Yep.
The result, I think this one's super key. And it's interesting, though, because it sort of conflicts with our E equals R plus O, which I kind of want you to cover.
Yeah.
But the result, what we're saying here, you can control your inputs. You can control what you do. Sometimes, no matter how well you do what you're doing, the outcome is out of your control.
Yep.
Some stuff just falls apart because here's the problem. Other people
and other things that you can't control happen.
are involved in almost everything that you're up to.
Yeah.
So stop trying to control the result. Control your inputs, your thoughts, your focus, your attention.
Yep.
Other people's opinions is a big one right now. What others think of you, other people's feelings, other people's attitudes, all
out of your control.
Out of your control. And all of us struggle with a reversion to those things. And again, this is where I think we have to own the reality. Why do we revert to those things? I think we revert to those things because of sociological and biological evolutionary realities about what's kept us safe in the past.
Yep. How we are wired, literally,
we're
physiologically.
Hardwired this way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's actually working against us.
Yeah, it's not helping. Yeah.
And there really aren't any tigers. There's very few tigers anymore. But our brain processes potential threats as if they were actual real tigers.
Yeah.
And I love that picture too. I had that up on the wall for a long time. I think we've got it on another resource somewhere.
Yeah, we do.
But maybe we'll make sure we share that as well. Talk us through the E equals R plus O then, because this is we stole this from Jack Canfield.
Yeah, Success Principles, his Success Principles, right?
I think that's what the book was called.
Yeah.
And super simple little idea, but incredibly impactful. How do you think of E plus R equals O?
Well, I mean, so E is the event, and often these events that are happening to you are out of your control, plus the R, the response. So as we just covered, kind of talking about the things that are in your control, the R is the thing that you have the most control over, and that equals the outcome that happens. So, and like you said, I think the outcome may not always be perfectly the one that you were looking for or desired, but you did control the inputs, how you responded, how you reacted to that. So, I mean, I guess just a real practical example, right? Things happen to us all the time in the course of a real estate transaction, right? There's things that just unexpectedly come up. I'm like an appraisal coming in high or low or whatever, if appraisal comes in low. How are you going to respond to that? with the way that you communicate to your clients, with the way you communicate to your counterpart, your co-opetition on the other side. How are you going to use LRC with your clients to help them get the desired outcomes that they want? So instead of responding in a way that is just going to heighten everyone else's emotions, I kind of picture, Buffini talks about be the eye of the hurricane in events where things are swirling around outside you. In real estate, I always kind of picture be the calm. So my response needs to be the calm in this to get the better desired outcomes. So yeah, event, things that are happening plus your response that is in your control equals the outcome, which may or may not go exactly like you want to, but it's better when you focus on the better way to respond, I guess.
It all sounds a lot to me, and maybe this is just how my brain works, and I'm cynical. But I do look around the world and I do see a significant amount of victimhood. Yeah. I see a lot of people wanting to blame and complain about the system or their circumstances or where they found themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of this I don't understand how this keeps happening to me kind of mentality, I think. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's just a meta example of the event. The event is things that happen to you. The event is crap happens.
Yep.
You can replace that with another word if you want. The event is every day, stuff happens. And the reality is it happens to everyone. Now, sometimes you get more unlucky than other people.
Yeah,
sometimes and that could be what happens in a day. It could be where you've started.
Yeah.
And we all start at different places. And it's from an accident of birth that some people are born into contexts where they have significant amounts of opportunity and others
do not. Yeah.
And it sucks and it's not fair. And when bad things happen, it's natural and it's instinctual to want to ruminate and complain and blame.
Yeah.
It's just fundamentally unhelpful.
Yeah. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to change anything, right?
So as a success principle, developing the muscle memory, creating the discipline of somehow being able to acknowledge the reality of the situation. Who am I? Where am I? What's true? What just happened? You can, I guess, add, is it fair or not fair? Mm-hmm. But the faster you can train yourself to move on to now, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
The lie is that where we find ourselves is simply a function of what's happened to us, whether that's at the meta level where you were born and how you were born, or at the micro level of what happened to me today in this transaction.
Yeah.
The reality is that where you find yourself is pretty much always a combination of what has happened to you and what you did about it or didn't do about it.
Yeah,
And so
I
think E plus R equals O is almost a chisel against the rock face of entitlement and victimhood.
Yeah.
And it still sucks to have bad things happen, but at the end of the day, what winners do is take their allotment of what went wrong, or or what's going right. Even. It can be both ways, and then what you do with that is going to define what your outcome is going to be. Yeah. And I think it's just a powerful little. Yeah. I'm not going to get the tattoo. We were talking about tattoos before.
We were.
It would be a good one to put on your wrist just to remind yourself. Yep,
yeah, I maybe need it.
This is the thing that's happening to me now. What do I now want to do about it? Because that's going to determine where I land.
Take 100% ownership of your responses. That's what that equation means to me.
That was in the remainder of that chapter with Jack's book.
Yep.
I have to jump back.
Yep, you found it.
Yeah, Invictus is so powerful. I'm not going to read the whole poem, but it was the final line I was thinking about. And again, this is the context of spending all this time in prison and deciding whether he's going to be a victim to his circumstances or take control. And he says, it matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. So essentially that's saying how much crap goes wrong in my life.
Yeah.
I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And that's a mindset.
Yeah.
And I think focusing on what you can control is absolutely connected to that mindset.
Yeah,
it's a mindset of, yep, that happened.
Yep.
Now what am I going to go focus on?
Yeah.
And I think people, back to the secret is there is no secret, is they're looking for something a little bit more profound and complex than this. But as Einstein said, the eighth wonder of the world is the power of compounding.
Yeah.
And the power of compounding daily inputs to be focused on things that are moving a ball an inch at a time forward
Yes.
Versus standing around looking at the ball and complaining about the fact that it's not rolling.
Yeah.
I think it just comes down to this. So I think some of these reflection questions are
they're good. Yeah.
But if maybe help me with this, what I would challenge people to do, the first thing I would say here is, if there's one takeaway, as a daily practice, as a routine, as a default mechanism, every single day, recognize first that there is a distinction between things that move the ball and things that don't.
Yes.
Ask the question, is it up to me? If it is, give it 100%. And what I mean by that is your energy is well spent on things that move things forward.
Yep.
And if it's not up to you, give it 0. And what I mean by that is your time, your energy, your focus on something that you physically cannot move forward is simply wasted. There might be a nuclear war one day. Yeah, there's a lot going on in politics right now. Yeah, the interest rates moved again. Yeah, the market condition might be slowing down somewhere nationally.
Yeah.
What did you do today
Yep.
to go and generate opportunities or have conversations or get your mindset right or build a better system in order to ensure that regardless of what's going on around you, your ship is moving forward? Yeah. I am the captain of my fate. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Yeah, because crappy things are going to happen, right? Like, so I mean, I want to keep going on these questions, but the powerful piece on here too is like, there's always something that you can do,
yes.
Right? So even in those times when bad things do happen, we've all had them happen to us. What can you do in that moment to, sometimes I give myself permission to like sit in it for a second. And then it's like, okay, now what can I do? And some of these are silly, but there's some things that I do. Sometimes when I am in like the chaos of I have no idea where to go, I just literally writing a to-do list for me is very cathartic. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's the things I can go do and knock off and go do. I mean, lists for me are super duper powerful.
You're not alone on that.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
One that made me chuckle was sometimes just take a walk to clear your mind. Like truly before the angry email or response or the way you text or the way you call or the way you talk to somebody, I have oftentimes I got to go take a walk. Like I just need a second to just process something, right? So some of these things, there's always something you can do. And sometimes those things are realizing what's going on and then, okay, this is what I need to go do to reset. Sometimes it is just a reset too. So.
Yeah, there's always something you can do. I think is added into the body here of what we wrote, because I think the lie in not the lie, but what it feels like often.
What you tell yourself sometimes.
Well, sometimes things are massively out of your control.
Yes.
Sometimes your world unravels and everything feels like it's out of your control.
Yep.
And I think the refrain, there's always something you can control, is another tattoo you might want to put on your arm.
Yep.
But it might be small, but there is something. Mm-hmm. There's always something that moves the ball forward. And I think that when you're in a state of panic or disillusionment, or when it just feels like the mountain is so big, there's no way,
you can't do it.
The number one thing you can do to enact change and fundamentally get to the other side of where you're trying to get to is to ask that question. What is the one thing I can control here?
Yeah.
And then there's your one bullet point to-do list.
In the better direction, right? Like, I mean, I was literally imagining your body, your head, your brain, your energy like shifting, literally choosing to go from the negative to the positive in a way.
Which begins a compounding effect of positivity towards, because the minute you get that one thing done, odds are there's another thing you can do after that, but your whole biology has shifted now.
Yep. I truly believe that.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to close this out? I know that you've found a lot of practical power out of this principle over the years.
I do.
So I'll let you close this out.
Yeah, I mean, I really just think it has been really powerful for me, because I'm generally a pretty positive, easygoing person. But there are things that are on that in my control list that I find myself in negative spaces sometimes. I am not always great. We've talked about this with even my self-talk, right? Like the things that I'm telling myself. So I feel like this has been super duper practical and powerful for me to try to reset and rewire some of that. So focus on the things that I can control, focus on the ways that I am handling things and the ways that I am responding, the ways I'm talking to myself, and really try to reframe and rewire that. Because it's almost freeing when you go, okay, this is biologically how I'm, but I have to work to do this simple thing and to remind myself to continue to do this simple thing and focus only on the things that I actually can control and to get better outcomes moving forward. So I don't know. That's what it's good for me. This one's like a really good one for me.
Sometimes it blows my mind how simple the answers really are.
Right.
But how challenging it is to be a human.
Yeah, it's not always easy, for sure.
Well, and maybe that's part of this too, is a little bit of grace for ourselves. There is a lot of noise, and there is a lot that doesn't go right. And I think we're all struggling with the same things. And so, yeah, it's okay. There's two buckets. It's exponential, not monumental, meaning you're not going to like enact massive change tomorrow. But every day, a 5, 10, 15, 20% increase in the amount of time you spend on what's moving the ball versus not, over time is the difference between massive success and mediocrity. So I think it's within everyone's control, and it's something that everyone can change. So yeah, wish you guys luck in redirecting your focus onto that other bucket.
Yeah.
Good stuff.